Alright, so for today's review, we are taking a look at my custom Komatsu Pc490LC. Now this is a combination of two different models. It is a combination of a Komatsu Pc400 450, and it also is a Universal Hobbies Komatsu Pc490. Now, kind of how this whole project came to light was I was on Instagram one day, and I saw a picture of someone who had made one of these themselves. And that's kind of how I got the idea to build it. Obviously, I didn't think of the idea. I just saw someone else do it and wanted to replicate the model. I built this model a couple of years ago, and I ended up selling it a couple of years ago. And then I recently actually acquired it again. And I fixed a few of the problems that it has. And I also installed this, I believe it's a Belletti hammer from Gaz Evans. So without further ado, let's get right into the review here. So like I said, this model does have a few things still wrong with it, but overall I'm fairly happy with it. So we'll go ahead and zoom in here. So the cab has, when you buy the 490 from Universal Hobbies, it does feature the cab guard on both the top and the front of the cab, which is nice. And you also get a fairly nicely detailed cab with the model. Now the paint match is a little bit off. The paint's a little bit lighter on the cab than it is compared to the car body. And you can see the hydraulic cylinders do have some paint chips and stuff on them. That's just one thing that I'm having a little bit hard time fixing. Paint doesn't really want to stick to them, but I guess it is what it is. It still looks fairly good. And then you do have some nice 490 decals right there. You have some nice 490 decals, and then you have a simulated latch right there, and then heavy duty. And then the track frames on here are fairly nice. It is a metal track frame. But I did take the tracks off and put some of the, I believe it's 13.5 millimeter ISM tracks on this thing. Which look to part. I did take off the hook and loop tracks that did come on this model. I'm just not a fan of hook and loop tracks, and I believe the ones that come on the Universal Hobbies are either resin or they're plastic, and if you look at them wrong, they do break. But you can see you have some nice details on the underside of your carriage. You have some simulated rollers, and you also have some decals of some lifting points and some little tiny, I would assume that's a little bit of a warning decal. And then your sprocket and idler are nicely detailed. And then coming to the rear of the machine, you have a nice Komatsu decal. And then you have 3 reverse cameras. You have a warning beacon, and I would assume this is a light for when you're backing up. Now, this model did used to have 2 warning decals on the side of the counterweight. But over the years and all the hands that it's been through, one has worn off. And you'd also do have some little painted reflectors on there, and then you can see the backside of your exhaust up there. And then coming to this side of the machine, you have a nice radiator and or engine compartment grill right there, and then you have another simulated latch, and then again you have some nice decals on this side. Now the handrails are plastic, and I do believe this is another camera right there. And then you have a plastic step. It's either plastic or metal. I'm almost positive it's a hard plastic step there to get up onto the car body. And then the top of the car body has some nice details. You have a lot of anti-slip texture, and it's not just a decal, it actually has some texture to it, which you can kind of hear right there. And then you have a fairly detailed swing motor and all the different hydraulics and stuff for the boom and everything. And then you have a very nicely detailed engine cover with some plastic handrails. And you have some filler caps and things like that on top of the machine. And then you can see the back side of the boom. Those Komatsus are fairly detailed models with the hydraulics, so all those, I was able to move on over to this model. Now, the one thing about these hydraulics is they can be a little bit brittle if you handle them wrong, and they can break. But a little dab of super glue should be able to fix that right up. And then this side, like most of the, I would assume, Asian market machines from Komatsu, only feature the decal on one side. And this side, obviously, is the one that has no decal on it. And then you have some nice armored hoses and some auxiliary lines on the stick, which are fairly nice. And then coming to this side, it is the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and zoom out there, and we'll get to some of the functionality of the model. So the ISM tracks are a little bit stiff, but if you have it more on a rougher surface, they can roll, but like I said, they are a little bit stiff, and they're mainly just kind of on there for display purposes. And then the range of motion is pretty much the same as the Kiowas, so you got a fairly good range of motion with the stick, so that's as far out as it will go, and this is about as far in as it will go, so it will fold up fairly nicely for transport. If you take the hammer off for transport, you'll be able to get a little bit better of a pose for transport. Now, I did modify the boom. There was a boom stop on the back. I didn't personally modify it. I had a friend, Custom Styrene. There was a little stop on the back of the boom that he cut off and then filed down. So this is about as high up as I will go. About as high up as you'll go with the boom right there. Just before you start having problems with the cylinders and things like that. And then this is as far down as the machine will dig, which is pretty amazing for this model. It's pretty much resting on the counterweight, so we're going to go ahead and bring that guy back up. Now, the one thing about these gauze attachments, I believe it's a 50-ton or 45, something like that, with this coupler can go on. Now, depending on the model you want to put them on, you will have to build some spacers. You don't have to. I personally like to build some spacers on these models so that the coupler doesn't slide back and forth. So that's what I did for all. There's 4 of them in there. What I do is I take a 1/16 drill bit and I put it into a piece of .20 styrene, put 4 holes in there, cut them out, and then just, file a little circle out of them, just so they're kind of tucked in there, so you can kindly hardly see them. I normally paint them black. On this one, I decided not to paint them black to match the coupler. It is what it is. So overall, this is definitely a pretty cool model to do. It was definitely a little bit of a challenging model to build for the most part. The Keiwa Komatsus, they don't really like to come apart fairly easily. These Universal Hobbies are super easy to take apart and get the boom and stuff out, but these Keiwas that these booms come off of, or that I took the boom off of, they definitely don't like to come apart. Once they're put together, they kind of like to stay together. But with a little bit of patience, you will be able to get it apart. This one I did buy. That's why the boom has some paint chips on it. I did buy it. It was a little bit damaged. And it was, not the price that those go for regularly. So I knew what I was getting into and kind of figured, if I do somehow mess it up before I ever get them all together, then it wasn't, a complete loss. But overall, definitely a cool customization to do. So if you're looking to do that, that's, kind of the 2 models you're going to need to complete it. But other than that, that's about it for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. If you want to see some more model reviews, consider hitting that subscribe button. That's all I have. Thanks for watching.